Hey, good afternoon. Wednesday afternoon. We are back. Gabe, DeArmond, Drew King on the PowerMizzou.com podcast. Last couple weeks have been a little bit different. We did an NIL thing last week. The week before that was travel for basketball. So we gotta switch the schedule around a little bit during hoop season because it's not like they just play every Saturday. So Drew, what's going on, man?
It's going well. It's going well. How about you?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I've been
Mhm.
fairly upset all day that they have an 8 o'clock tip off tonight.
Yeah.
But first world problems and all that. We'll talk about that. We'll talk Missouri LSU. We'll talk a little bit of NCAA tournament, all that. If you guys have questions, comments, feel free to put them in the queue, and we will get to those if you're watching live. If you are one of those watching live on YouTube, make sure at some point to look at the banner running across the bottom of the screen. That's going to tell you how to get in touch with James Carlton State Farm. James wants to do two things for you. Number one, he wants to take care of your insurance needs, be that car insurance, home insurance, life insurance, whatever you might need. James wants to see if he can save you any money. Every bit as much as that, I can say as much because I've talked to James and I know that he cares about Mizzou sports about probably close to as much as he cares about his job. And that's not a bad thing because he really cares about Mizzou sports, but he also wants to help Missouri's NIL efforts. We did talk last week with Nick Garner about Every True Tiger Foundation, the NIL collective. And that's what James wants to help you guys do. If you call James or you go online at carltoninsurance.net, you get a quote from him. You mentioned PowerMizzou. He's going to donate $20 to Every True Tiger Foundation on your behalf. He will do that for every single person that gets in touch with him and gets a quote like our own Drew King did, uses James Carlton for his insurance, and uses PowerMizzou for his way to watch Missouri basketball like he will later tonight. So I don't know, Drew. It's weird to say this, but like we've hit a point where, especially tonight, we're going to the arena, and anything other than a somewhat comfortable win for Missouri would be a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, and first of all, I'm a little surprised you're not excited about the 8 p.m. tip-off. I thought you would have been like a night owl hyped up for it, but.
I mean, I don't know how much you know about me yet, but I'm an old man, and 8 o'clock is, man, I try not to be outside my house at 8 o'clock. Something's gone wrong if I am not in my house at 8 p.m.
See, I'm the opposite way. Something's gone wrong if I'm not outside my house at 8 a.m. So, but yeah, looking at this LSU team, they do not look to be as good as advertised before the season. And really through the early part of the season too. I mean, they did a really good job in their non-conference schedule, but it was also a pretty easy schedule to get through. And then they start off SEC play with a win over Arkansas and haven't won since then. It's been a month since they've won. They've dropped 8 straight. And so you're looking at this LSU team like it's a very beatable team. You don't want to be the one that they snap the losing streak against. And so that's kind of the expectation if you're Mizzou.
Well, and it's pretty interesting because, look, I do not yet think it's fair to say, hey, Missouri made the good hire in Dennis Gates and LSU made a bad hire in Matt McMahon. Like,
Right.
it's way too early to say that. But I do find it kind of interesting that these two teams were put together in somewhat similar ways. I mean, I'm not sure LSU has anybody back from last year. Dennis Gates did at least have, Kobe Brown and Caleb Brown and Ronnie DeGray back. So we had kind of a building block piece there, which McMahon didn't have in Baton Rouge. But then they both brought a handful of guys from their previous program that already knew their system and then went out and got other transfers to fill out the roster. But the interesting part to me is Matt McMahon's previous program was better than Dennis Gates. I mean, Murray State is a better team and a better program than Cleveland State. So you would think those guys would be a little more ready to contribute in the SEC than Gates's guys. And then also Gates pretty much brought in mid-major transfers. Matt McMahon brought in some guys from Power 5 programs, from high major programs. And for whatever reason, it's not working right now.
Yeah. So I think two things to that. Number one, Matt McMahon was at Murray State for a lot longer of a time, right? He had more seasons to kind of build up his vision for the program. So I don't necessarily think that that's the best way to evaluate like how the two teams were going. Matt McMahon did come from a better program though. And then coming into this year, I think you kind of hit on it. Like Kobe staying, I think, has been a huge factor for Mizzou this season, right? Because we've said it before. If he has a good night, everything else falls into place for them. I'm not sure that LSU has that player. They have KJ Williams, who came over from Murray State, but that's like saying, Demoy Hodge, you're going to come over here and be Mizzou's best player, which he's been good, but they can't always win when he's the leading scorer. And so I think that's kind of the difference between these two teams at this moment, is that, Mizzou had an all SEC player already on the roster when Dennis Gates came in.
Yeah. And the other, I know you weren't with us when Missouri was going through the coaching search, but I said repeatedly during the coaching search, like Matt McMahon was one of 4 or 5 guys that were pretty confident were in Missouri's group. Like all these schools were kind of looking at the same guys, right? Gates and McMahon and Golden, and Kim English was in the mix at Missouri. He wasn't maybe in the mix at some of those other places, but in looking at that group of guys that we thought was kind of the finalists, my concern with Matt McMahon was always everybody wins at Murray State. Like, I'm not sure I want to hire a guy from Missouri State because literally every coach has won at Murray State. And if you look at where they've gone afterwards, most of them really haven't won after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, you can win with a guy like John Morant, right? But
well, yeah.
I mean, but no, you're right. Like Murray State and the conference that they play in too. It's a little bit easier to win in the Ohio Valley than it is SEC, and so I think.
Well, and like there are Ohio Valley programs. Like I'm not even going to pretend to know who else is in the Ohio Valley, but like Murray State always wins the Ohio Valley. Like that is the Alabama football of the Ohio Valley, right? When I was growing up, Popeye Jones and Murray State were good. Like they've been good for a long time. So my point is, if you're winning at a place that's always won, like Dennis Gates won at Cleveland State, it's not like Cleveland State is a dominant program, even in the horizon, right? Like it's a place that not a lot of guys have won. So it just, and again, that's not saying Matt McMahon can't succeed, but it was just kind of a thing that was on my radar during the coaching search.
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a good point, though, is that Murray State did have kind of a history of being good before Matt McMahon got there, for sure.
Zachary Ray says a big one for this tonight is letting Adam Miller shoot the 3. He's 10 of 37 in his last 6. And like, it's a little bit dangerous because going into the game at Ole Miss might have said, well, just let Demoy Hodge shoot the 3, right? He's 4 of 25. So you don't want to you don't want it to be the night a shooter gets going against you. Adam Miller is interesting to Missouri fans because Missouri was his first offer out of high school. He ended up, Conzo Martin absolutely loved him. He went to Illinois. It didn't really work with Brad Underwood. Then he transferred, and Missouri was the weirdest transfer recruitment ever this spring. Like I legitimately had multiple people tell me Adam Miller is going to Missouri. And then I checked some sources around here and was told, we're not even recruiting Adam Miller. So it was a really bizarre situation, but whatever, he's going to play in Mizzou Arena just for LSU tonight.
So he does end up playing in Mizzou Arena.
Yes.
So
it was weird though.
Both sides might have been right. Who knows?
Yeah, he was a super highly recruited kid who he hasn't really put it together yet, right?
Yeah.
But look, if I'm a shooter who's struggling shooting, I kind of think Missouri's the team I want to play.
Yeah.
Because they're going to give you some open looks.
Yeah, and actually in my preview today on PowerMizzou.com, got to plug the website.
Go read it. You guys may have heard of it. If not, right back. There.
Yeah, there it is. No, but in my preview today, I said I think I would actually take the opposite route in this one, because LSU is even less efficient at scoring inside than they are outside. They shoot about 33% from three, and only about 47% from inside the arc. And Mizzou, for its part, I think has done a really good job of protecting the paint when it needs to. The two Arkansas games come to mind, going up against a below average shooting team, let's say.
Right.
And so Adam Miller, might be able to get some threes off against them, but that's, you're going to live and die with that. I think my route would be making sure that they don't get any easy looks at the rim.
Yeah. And, hey, the key to this one's the same as it always is for Missouri. Pick up the pace, cause some turnovers, get some transition points, all that. We know what this team is at this point, but it kind of going back to that 3-point defense, I think a lot of the open looks and a lot of the high percentages that some teams have shot, and it always seems worse than it actually is. Like, I was stunned to get to the end of the game and discover Iowa State had only made 6 threes, because it seemed like they made 4 in the first 10 minutes, But I think a lot of it happens because this is a team that is unafraid to gamble, right? They go for a lot of steals. They try to cut into a lot of passing lanes. And what that does, it does result in a lot of steals, but also results in sometimes where all of a sudden you're out of position and the next guy can't get there. But like when we were talking to Demoy Hodge yesterday, like he pretty much just kind of openly admitted that, hey, I'm willing to take a gamble because I think it's going to pay off more often than it doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean, it helps when you have the rest of the team able to recover as quickly as Mizzou does, right? Like, you have Kobe on the back line, who normally does a pretty decent job in the paint, but you've also got like guys who can switch onto your man if you lose him, right? Like going from Demoy Hodge to Isaiah Mosley, for instance, size-wise, there's not that big of a gap between the two, right? And so I think that's been, you mentioned the way that Gates kind of built the team. That was kind of his vision coming in, is that it's going to be kind of positionless, especially on defense, where everybody can guard everybody. And so
that's what people hear, positionless basketball, and I think a lot of times don't know exactly. That's mostly what it means, right? On defense, it doesn't matter who's guarding who, because most of our guys can, like, look, we can't guard Zach Edey. There's not a guy who can play the traditional 5 other than maybe Mo Diarra. But 1 through 4, like, Sean East can guard a point guard, but he can guard a wing, okay? I mean, you probably don't want him on the block against a power forward, but if you get caught in a switch every now and then, it might not kill you.
Right. And I mean, you've seen like Mo Diarra, 40 feet away from the basket sometimes guarding the point guard, because that's the switch that the other team got. And I mean, there was was it the Florida game where he committed the late foul and they got a free throw to go ahead? I think that's what happened.
They all run together.
But since then, I think he's done a pretty solid job being able to go out on the perimeter and hold his own and not get crossed up by a ball handler. So I think, like you said, when we talk about positionless basketball, that's what it means, is that you're able to not have gaps when you make a switch from a big to a little.
Yeah. Man at Arms says Du Bois is definitely a gambler. I love it when my questions get brought up on this show. I did ask Du Bois yesterday, what do you think is a good shot? And he gave me the answer I was basically looking for. He said, if I can get it off. Now, he did, to be fair, expand on that a little bit. But, he's a guy that, and like, I think that's this team's mentality. And I thought it was pretty evident in that Iowa State game, right? They got up about 15, and that's kind of when you start going, I wonder if they should slow it down a little bit. This team should not slow it down a little bit until they're at like the under 4. Yeah. And at that point, you take the air out of the ball. But like, if this team tries to slow it down with 12 minutes left, they might get caught, because that's not how they're used to playing.
Yeah, I mean that's something that they've kind of struggled with earlier in the season is having to play at the other team's pace. You know, going against Wichita State and UCF. Um, you know, they're not as good when they're not running full speed, and
Right.
so I think Isaiah has helped with that some. Just having him on the floor as an extra spacer, putting him in Des Moines in the corners opens up a lot in the middle for the team, but it's still like not as good as when they're flying from baseline to baseline, getting steals and layups in transition.
So that brings up, and I asked Dennis Gates this question a week ago. Shockingly, he did not answer it. Guys, you're going to find out. This is a theme. Dennis is going to say what he is going to say. It may or may not have anything to do with the question he's been asked, but that's okay. Like he's welcome to do it. I'm just prefacing this with that. So I asked him like a week ago. People talk all the time about you have to dictate the tempo, right? Like you have to get that team to play at your pace. Here's what I don't really know for sure. How can you force a team to do that? I mean, how can Missouri force a team that wants to play half court to play at its pace?
They have to get the lead on the other team, right?
Yeah.
So, because if you're playing catch up and you're down 10 with 8 minutes left, you're going to hurry up and get the ball across half court.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of how they've done it so far this year. You especially in that Iowa State game, right? We got to the 6 or 5 minute mark and Mizzou had the double-digit lead, and I think was up to 70 points at that point, and you were like, I don't think Iowa State's going to catch them. And they didn't, right? So I think when Mizzou's going up against some of these slower teams, especially the two that they're playing this week, that's going to be the goal, is to make sure that you have a lead and that the other team has to play with a sense of urgency.
And the other way you do that is by making shots. So then you can kind of set up the press and all that. Because if you miss a shot, it is very easy for a team to just grab a rebound and say, okay, just wait. We're just going to hold on here. We're not going to run with it. So again, Mizzou, LSU tonight, we would certainly, I mean, this is one, I'm not going to say you can't lose it, but you kind of can't lose it. Right?
Yeah, no, this is kind of like going back to the Ole Miss game. I think this is a must win for them, especially at home, going against LSU. It would be probably their worst loss of the season if they drop this one, I think.
Oh, yeah, because I think, I mean, right now, what's Missouri's worst loss? Florida, which is a quad one loss.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, they're top 50,
and on the
I
road.
think, in the net. Yeah, exactly. So Cam points out on February 6th, 2021, Mizzou beat Alabama to get into the top 10, then fell apart and ended up as a 9 seed. Like, I understand, and Drew, you probably don't understand this yet, but welcome to this fan base who the light at the end of the tunnel is always a train. So just prepare to get run over. And there's some validity to thinking that way. I understand, guys. But I don't know. The thing about this team to me that you like is they are through the toughest part of their schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, they have played like 8 of their 10 most difficult games already. Other than at Tennessee and at Auburn, everything else you look at and go, hey, they might not be favored, but it's at least a toss-up.
Yeah, actually, Ken Palm has them only dropping 3 games the rest of the way. And it's Tennessee and Auburn, like you mentioned, both of those are road games. And then the Mississippi State game this weekend on the road. And even that one I look at as being a winnable for Mizzou, because like I watched Mississippi State last night and I really wasn't all that impressed with them playing South Carolina. I mean, so it's going to be a tough game for sure. And I think they're going to play Mississippi State twice and they're going to play Texas A&M once. You can probably afford to lose one of those games, but the rest of them I think can definitely be wins. And that'll get them up over the 20 win mark for the season.
Yeah, and you've got South Carolina, you've got Georgia, you've got LSU twice. I mean, you're playing a bunch of bad teams, to be quite honest. I want to go back and hit hit a question from earlier from Jason. Is there a big guy that Mizzou's bringing in next year? I mean, Jordan Butler is listed
He's
anywhere
6'11".
from 6'10" to 7 foot, depending on who you believe. So we'll split the difference and say 6'11", which might mean 6'9". I know how basketball measurements work, but with the hair, 7 foot.
Let me double check. Because I'm pretty sure his brother is also listed as 6'11". His brother's 7 foot actually, which,
Okay.
and you know, he's also like only 17 or 18 right now, so he could grow too.
Can you imagine being 6'11" and you're like the short one? That'd be weird, man. That'd be weird.
I couldn't handle it.
Some epic battles in the driveway there, 1-on-1. But and then look, they're also bringing in Trent Pierce, who is, I don't know, somewhere between 6'7" and 6'10". Again, kind of depending on who you believe in, you know. But he's probably more of kind of that stretch four. Would be more his position. And actually, that's what Jordan Butler is too, I think, because while Jordan Butler is 6'11", it would not shock me if he was barely over 200 pounds.
Right. Kind of
lean is how they say that, I believe.
Trent Pierce and Jordan Butler might be the same weight, and Jordan Butler just might be stretched out a little bit more.
Right. Yeah, that's fair to say. They also may be the same weight as Anthony Robinson, who's like 6'1".
Yes.
So, you know, no, they are long, lean, athletic guys, and that is largely what Gates is going to recruit, and then they're going to get in a weight room. I mean, again, people who saw him last year, and I mean, the difference in Kobe Brown's body from last year to this year is unbelievable. That dude is sculpted now compared to what he was last year. So they're going to get these guys in and put some weight on them and do some of that. You mentioned
you see that a little bit with Aiden Shaw too. I think he's a little bit thicker than he was before the season started.
And they say Mo Diarra has added 20 pounds since he hit campus, you know, so it's look, these programs are built to do that. Most kids in high school don't do it. Man at Arms wants to know how many years of eligibility Mosley has left. I'm pretty confident it's this year and next year.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So look, I'm trying to be real careful with this because Missouri fans, I understand we cover recruiting, and when you follow recruiting, like, you always want to talk about what's next. But it's been a long time since Missouri has had a basketball team that has been really fun to follow. Like, I would discourage people from fast forwarding through this season thinking about what next season might be, because this season's a hell of a lot better than any of us thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun for this year, for sure. And it can be exciting to think about, like, okay, how do they build off of the success that they've had this season? But at the same time, like, there's a lot to look forward to with this team too. Like, we still got a whole postseason to get to. We still have half of an SEC schedule to go through. Right. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, we don't even know what they're going to be building off of, right? Like, they could be building off of anything from, like, playing in the first four to, holy crap, this team made a run, man. I mean, because, like, this team is capable of making a run if it gets hot on a couple nights.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Ken Palm has them winning all 5 of their last games of the regular season. And so that would make them a pretty hot team going into March, with where you're playing, you know, win or go home games.
And this is also the type of team that, like, matchups are going to obviously be so important, right? Because, again, if you, like, Zach Edey might have 35 and 35 against this team, and we understand that. But also, this is a team that plays 11 guys pretty regularly. Like, you might not want to get them on the third straight day playing at the conference tournament, or on the second day playing in the NCAA tournament if you're a thinner team. So all teams are matchup reliant in the postseason. But my point is, like, this is kind of the team Missouri fans have been begging for 9 years. And I understand the Kobe Brown and Isaiah Mosley questions, but don't miss this year because you're worried about next year.
Absolutely. And to add to that, it's a team that's getting better too, right? Like, we haven't seen this team at full strength with Isaiah Mosley and Mo Diarra in the rotation, and with Noah Carter and Kobe Brown and Trey Gomillion all healthy, right? Like, this is a team that has a lot left to show, and so that's kind of what I think the focus should be on. It is not necessarily how good it's going to be next year, but how good is it going to be this year?
Right. And it'll be interesting to see. And Man at Arms says not fast forwarding at all. But and again, we understand the questions. Like that's part of the deal. You're always looking ahead. But just this is like, I don't look forward to covering the 8 o'clock games, but all the rest of the games have been very fun to cover. I've enjoyed those, so what's a good week this week? Is 1-1 a good week?
No, I think
1-1's okay.
Yes, that's what I should have said. 1-1 is okay, but like I said, you play Mississippi State twice and you play Texas A&M again. I think losing one of those games, you'll be all right. Two of them is a little bit disappointing, right? It'll probably knock you back. It'll knock you down a couple of seeds during Selection Sunday, I think. So if you only have one loss to use up and kind of stay status quo, I don't know that you want to use it in the first game of the 3.
Right. Well, and 2-0 gets them back in the top 25 this week without question. We know that. And that does matter to some people. The other thing, I think, Saturday in Starkville, and Drew will be there. So he'll have full coverage for you guys. He'll hit Starkville sometime early on Saturday, and he'll be there for you guys all day through the game. But I think that might be the first time that we find out, can Missouri win a game when it doesn't score 70? Because like Mississippi State is just going to drag you into a rock fight. Like that game could be played in the 50s if Mississippi State really asserts the way it wants to play.
Yeah, I was watching them play South Carolina last night, and it was an absolute
rock South fight. Carolina plays every game as a rock fight, not by choice. They do.
Right. No, but I mean, there was less than 5 minutes in the game, and the score was 21-20, and the difference was that Mississippi State kept leaning on its defense to win the game. Right? They kept stopping South Carolina from scoring, and so that's how they eventually pulled away in the second half. It's not very aesthetically pleasing to watch, but it is effective, right? And Ken Pom has them as the number 9 defense in the country, so it's going to be a really contrast of styles between the two teams and how they want to play. And so I think Mizzou's going to go into that one kind of with the same game plan they had against Iowa State, where if you can get 70 points on them and get a big lead, it's going to be really tough for Mississippi State to come back from it.
Yeah, I was going to say Iowa State was the number 8 defense in the country coming into the game. So be interesting to see. So, guys, wanted to make sure we jumped on here, gave you guys another show. But we do have a game tonight at 8 o'clock. Appreciate everybody who was here watching live with us. Before you leave, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll put a podcast out in a couple minutes after this. If you're listening on that podcast, 5-star reviews, say nice things about us on social media. Drew, any parting shots before we go rest up for the midnight tip-off?
Parting shots. Yeah, I have a bone to pick with you, actually. I asked you on Twitter who would win a game of 1-on-1 between me and Gerard Hamilton, and you said that Gerard would be the betting favorite, and I just want to know why.
I think he would be installed as the betting favorite. He's a little younger. Is he taller than you?
He's 1 inch taller than me.
Okay, I think he's a little taller. Last time you guys played basketball, he did survive a brutal cut to the face. So
yes,
I think he's got some toughness about. I'm not saying he would sweep you. I just think if I were to start the PowerMizzou book on it, I think more money would come in on him than would come in on you.
I understand. I see how it is.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I have to prove the doubt is wrong.
We'll run that for charity sometime in the off season.
Sounds good.
All right, Drew. We'll let you go, man. We'll catch up with you later tonight. And guys, before I let all of you go, I do want to remind you one more time that all of our shows here are made possible for you guys to enjoy for free without paying us anything. We appreciate those who do pay, but some of you, we understand, prefer not to pay, and you just hang out on YouTube and Twitter and get the free stuff. So the reason you can do that is because of our friend James Carlton. James Carlton, State Farm Insurance at carltoninsurance.net. His phone number is 314-961-4800. And again, like James not only is making this possible for you guys, he wants to make Mizzou sports better for you guys too. And if you get in touch with James, you ask him about insurance, you get a quote from him, he is going to donate $20 for every quote he gives out to someone that heard about him through PowerMizzou, to Every True Tiger Foundation. That is Mizzou's NIL collective of choice. So all you have to do is get in touch with James and say, hey man, heard about you on PowerMizzou, want to get a quote from you on my car insurance. Whether or not you end up going with James as your agent, he's going to give $20 to that collective Every True Tiger Foundation on your behalf. So do that. They call that a win-win. Missouri should win tonight, but we'll see. Drew and I will be there about 5 hours from now at Mizzou Arena. So thanks for hanging out, and we'll talk to you next time.